Sitting here with Joe Barber, the second person voted out of the Big Brother house this season. All right, so many more questions for you. Last night when you got evicted and you saw the goodbye tape and Dustin said, you know, take care of yourself, and you reacted and you said, oh, that face he made.
Oh, he just made some sort of just a silly face. The reason I actually laughed, Julie, was because he said that I'm not that person that I was in the summer of 2005, which is when we met and when we really shared some great months together. And I laughed because, of course, I'm not that person. I'm smarter, better, stronger. I've gone through a lot since then, and I wouldn't want to be that person that I was anyways. And the way that he said it was in such a condescending nature that I could do nothing but laugh, because he's constantly trying to one-up me and be better than me. And to say that in his goodbye message was just absolutely pointless.
Was it like that during the relationship, or was it only like that after a bitter breakup?
It was like that during the entire relationship. For the first 3 months, it was, the honeymoon phase. It was extremely fun. We were both very considerate of one another. But as the time progressed, he just, I think insecurities in him well up, and then he likes to put other people down. He likes to try to be the best. He likes to try to do all sorts of things. And when you push so hard at trying to do that, you end up stomping on people along the way. And I was one of those people that he stomped on.
Do you regret any of your behavior in the relationship?
I completely regret some of my behavior. It's some of the few regrets I have in life. All the things that I did with his friends and with his best friend and whatnot to kind of get back at him. All I was ever looking for in that year that we didn't speak was to apologize. And I finally did get that. I finally got some time with him alone before I left to lay out everything that I had done, things he didn't even know about that I had done, and tell him everything, get it off my chest, clear my conscience, and say I'm sorry and genuinely mean it. And after that, he just was angry and started trying to be mean to me again. And I was like, you know what?
But during the apology, did he accept it, and was it a good moment between the two of you?
I don't know if the moment was necessarily reciprocal, but I got exactly what I needed, and that was just closure for me to say I'm sorry. Time for me to say, I did these things, I wronged you in this way, and I'm sorry, and I can finally move forward with a clear conscience on that.
If he had responded in a more positive fashion, in your mind, do you think you could have worked together as secret partners in the house? And did you ever consider, all right, we have history, some good, some bad, let's try and get an alliance with each other?
It most definitely crossed my mind. Having someone in the house that you know outside of the house gives you a very strong advantage, because there are almost wordless conversations that you can have just by reading a person's body language when you know them so well. But the whole bad part of our relationship was that we had no trust with one another. I couldn't trust him at all.
That's a problem in the Big Brother
Yes,
game.
exactly. And so to try to move forward in an alliance with somebody that you have absolutely no trust for is pretty pointless.
He seemed to develop a very quick friendship, maybe even an alliance, bond with Amber, and a little bit with Danielle, right? You seem to be a little bit of a floater. Was that strategy? Was that you didn't care for anyone in the house? Were you feeling people out?
It was kind of a mix of both. I was trying to get an idea of who I clicked well with, so that moving forward it was somebody that I had a positive relationship and somebody that I could trust. But also at the same time, having him there completely just threw me into disarray.
That entire time?
Yes. Yes, it really did. It wasn't until towards the end when I finally got my closure and I finally got to apologize. If I had realized earlier in the game that that's all I needed was to get that off my chest and say I'm sorry, I would have done that day one and been able to move forward a lot more successfully in this game.
Towards who? Who were you sensing, if you had stayed in the house longer, you would be trying to form an alliance with?
Well, I kind of started to form what was known as the Underground Mafia, and that was myself, Danielle, Nick, Jamaica, and Jessica. Moving forward, and especially after the way the vote went down, and even if I had stayed, that was done because there was no trust there anymore. I was looking forward to working with Kale and working with Jessica.
Kale is not exactly one of Dick's favorite people.
Yes.
He said, he called her out, and he basically tried to expose her for how he sees her, and he sees her as a deceptive person.
Yes.
Accurate? Unfair?
I believe that's extremely unfair. I believe that Dick has, for some reason, targeted Kale I believe to take the heat off himself so that people don't realize that he's not a very trustworthy person. And he's focused on these negative aspects of her personality and of her gaming style that aren't even apparent to anybody else. But when you say it and say it and say it so much, eventually people just believe it and buy it and go forward with it. Because it's easier to attack Kale than for anyone to look at themselves and make a realistic,
Well, what would you say if I told you that Kale told someone that she was going to have to convince his daughter, Danielle, who she believed was probably on the fence, to vote him out? Like, oh, I'm going to convince her it's better for her because it's hard on her to have him here. When she did that, Danielle saw it, and she went straight to her dad. It was like, listen, I got to talk to you what Kale's doing. So Kale was trying to get him out.
Yes.
And then he called her out on it. So is he at least kind of in the right in what he accused her of?
I don't necessarily think that she did it with malicious intent and any sort of personal reason to try to get his daughter against him. She was trying to rally votes for me so that I could stay, because she obviously wanted me to stay over Dick due to their strained relationship. I don't think that she did it with malicious intent, but at the same time, it's gaming, and you can't really hold it personally. I think that Dick goes above and beyond calling people out. I think calling people out is a nice way to say it, Julie, frankly. He cusses people out, tells them off, says whatever's on his mind, which in one way you can respect as being an honest person, but in another way it's just completely rude and disrespectful to the individuals he does it to.
How did you feel about him doing it to Jen? Because you weren't a big Jen fan.
I was most definitely not a Jensa member, but the way that he treated Jen even made me uncomfortable. There's a line that you cross from gentle ribbing, the way Eric kind of teases her, to just out-and-out rudeness, calling her the names, all the expletives that I'm sure you constantly had to bleep out of him. He was just, it made me uncomfortable in that situation. But it didn't
seem to make her uncomfortable, did it?
No, it did not seem to make Jen uncomfortable, and I think that's because Jen lives in her own little Jen world. And there's really very little you can do to penetrate that, even Dick.
What about what you did to Jen? You went behind her back and you tattled on Nick. You were like, were you trying to stir up trouble, or were you trying to get to the truth of the matter? Tell us what you did.
Well, honestly, I was a little of both. I wanted to know the truth of the matter because it seemed if Nick was going around and trying to kiss all of these people, that he wasn't a very trustworthy person. And going into the game, I trusted Nick a lot. Also, I do kind of like to stir the pot for entertainment value, especially when there's no television to watch any drama on. It's just so much easier to create your own.
And did you leave the house trusting Nick? What do you think of him?
Leaving the house, I did not trust Nick whatsoever. He could have been honest, open and honest from the beginning and said, I'm not thinking I'm going to vote for you because I'm so close with Danielle. He could have given me a myriad of positive reasons for why he was going to vote for Dick. But in the last 20 minutes before we went to the vote, he concocted some sort of story about how supposedly I told Jen to put him up. And I just knew it was completely fabricated. And it just really hurt my feelings that he couldn't come to me man to man and explain to me the situation.
Where did you get that story from, that you told Jen to put him up?
I would say that either he heard it from one of the people who were already voting for Dick and they were just trying to stir up trouble, but instead of being open and honest like I am when I stir up trouble, they did it behind my back, or he just completely fabricated it himself out of his imagination to try to give me some justification as to why he was going to vote the way that he was going to vote.
So you clearly know with the 9-1 vote, the one person who voted to keep you in.
It was Kale.
Were you surprised by it being 9-1?
I was not surprised that it was being 9-1. I told the people that were closest to me, Jessica and Jamaica, and I said, if it doesn't seem like I'm going to get the votes, don't vote for me. Because if you vote for me, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. If you vote for the person that's obviously going, the way that Jen voted for Carol in week 1, it kind of puts a huge target on your back because it's saying that you're not a team player, that you're not taking into account what the house wants, that you're going to do what you're going to do when you want to do it. And with that sort of gaming attitude, people know that you're only out for your best interest.
Are you aware that Kale was in an alliance?
Yeah, Kale was in an alliance with Jen and Mike.
No.
Really?
Well, I don't know how strong it is this morning, since she kind of went out on her own. But she was in an alliance with Mike, correct?
Yeah.
Zach.
Okay. We knew Zach, yeah.
And Nick.
Oh, wow.
Early on.
Wow.
But Nick is starting to, develop feelings for Danielle, so he's kind of like, I think I'm going to go my own way here.
Yeah.
So I think Kale was a little bit surprised when she heard 9-1 because Mike, who is her strongest ally probably, didn't go the way that he indicated to her that he would.
Yeah, it seems interesting that if she were in alliance with Nick, that Nick wouldn't have ended up voting for me. If Nick had ended up voting for me, Zach would have ended up voting for me. He told me word for word, and Zach confirmed. Then he would have had Kale's vote, Jessica's vote, and Mike's vote, and it would have been a tie, and Jen would have kept me.
So you're saying Zach didn't vote for you only because he wanted to do what his buddy Mike was going to do?
His buddy Nick.
His buddy Nick?
Whatever Nick does, Zach does. Zach's a follower, not a leader. Yeah. Zach goes whichever way the wind blows for the week.
What'd you think of America's twist? Not in regards to throwing Dustin in the house with
Yes,
you.
but with Eric.
America's player.
I think that's a very interesting twist. Easily the best of the season since it's so fresh and new. I think it really gives him an opportunity to work inside of the house as well as having communication outside of the house of what people are telling him to do. It gives him it gives him a little more challenging game to play, most definitely. But I think Eric's definitely up for it.
You like him?
I really do. Eric was one of my favorite people in the house.
None of his behavior seemed suspicious to you?
It did. We kind of had a nickname for him. We called him Crazy-Eyed People. CEP for short, SEPs, because he would just walk around the house all the time. I don't know. Like, you'd ask him a question, and he would never look at you. I don't know, Julie. That's a really good question. Like, and he would shake his head, and he always seemed like he was up to something, and he was always a little nervous and a little on edge, and nobody could put their finger on it, but everybody knows that there is something with Eric. If he's able to continue this and go throughout the game without getting caught, I'd be pretty surprised.
You know who got HOH after you got kicked out last night?
I heard that Dick did, yes.
What do you think that's going to do to the house? Who's in trouble and who's safe?
Well, Dick would really, he's an extremist as I am. It's either one way or the other. And I see Dick either going with the obvious of putting Kale and Jen up with Mike as the alternate, or he's going to do something crazy and stir up the house, and who knows who he'd go after at that point.
Who would you like to have seen gotten HOH this past week?
I really would have liked to have seen Jessica get HOH. She was who I was closest with in the house, and I know that she definitely would have tried to avenge my eviction for me, which is great. You know, you're not really gone until you have people that aren't doing your work for you anymore there.
You were closest to her, but did you find her to be trustworthy?
I found Jessica to be extremely trustworthy. She's kind of laying low in the beginning. She's not really doing too much gaming. So before I left, I kind of had some pep talks with her, and I told her who to trust and who not to trust, who I felt was, you know, a good ally to have moving forward.
And who did you say?
She took it all, and I'm not.
Who did you say to trust and not trust?
Oh, I said to trust Kale and to watch out for Nick and Dick, because you know, you look at the seasons past, and it's always the people who are the self-proclaimed honest ones who are never the honest ones, such as Amber, such as Dustin, such as Dick. And I also pointed out that, you know, the people usually who are the weakest attack another person to try to deflect attention off of them. And I go, and that's all Dick is doing with his firestorm of hatred towards Kale and Jen. He's just trying to get everyone to focus on Kale and Jen when there's really no validity to many of his statements.
Since you are such a diehard Big Brother fan, and you seem to know all these things about, you know, in the past, it's these people who are that. But
yeah.
How different was it for you to be playing it in the house rather than watching it and playing it from your armchair at home?
The difference is, of course, as you watch it on television, you always know what people should do. And when you're in the thick of it, it's much more difficult to remove yourself from the situation and make those type of decisions. A lot of times I would try to remove myself and look at it from a viewer's perspective, and that did, I feel, give me an advantage. But at the same time, this is a very difficult season for me because of the Dustin situation.
Well, Joe, you're a good sport.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And good luck to you. I'll see you on finale night.
Thank you.